Hey everybody, I'm Sierra.
And I'm Ben.
And welcome back to another episode of the Unsolved Couple, where every week Ben and I recap one of the original gateway drugs into true crime.
Unsolved mysteries.
You good over there?
Yeah, good.
Yeah? You ready to get after it?
I'm ready.
You are?
Yeah, I was born ready.
Sure you were, Turner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was born for this show.
That's one way to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think you got talked into it.
Yes.
Yeah.
With an armbar.
How was your week?
You know how my week was.
I know we spent a lot of time together this week.
Yes, we did. It was a great week.
Tell the people what we did.
We went to Nashville.
We did go to Nashville. We had a good time.
With no kids.
Yeah.
Which hasn't happened for
Couple years.
a while.
Yeah.
And only a couple times in our marriage.
Mm-hmm.
So.
What'd you think of the city? This was your first time there.
Yeah. Well, first off, I love Tennessee.
Yeah.
All the Tennessee people, you have an amazing state. And I will be joining you when I retire.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to be. I want to be.
You want to be where they are.
A Tennessee.
You want to be where the people are.
Yeah.
You want to see. You want to see them dancing.
I think you're trying to quote a song, and I'm out. And second, I love country music.
Mm-hmm.
So two great things.
Yeah.
But I don't like big cities. And Nashville is just another big city.
It is.
I grew up literally just outside of Portland, the Portland metro area. I have spent a lot of my time in a big city. And I am not comparing Nashville to Portland, okay? You are very different.
Yeah.
Very, very different. And I would take Nashville over Portland any day of the week.
It's just funny too, because like I grew up in a town of 3,000.
Yeah.
But yet, put us in a big city, and I am for sure a passenger princess. I prefer Ben to drive, blah, 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 blah. But when we go to a big city, I actually like to drive because Ben, his anxiety goes up.
I can't.
And as an empath, like, then I'm stressed out and I'm just like so anxious, but traffic doesn't bother me. Being in tight, small spaces in traffic and getting into parking spot, like all of those things it doesn't faze me at all.
No,
but
and I hate it.
You hate it.
I hate driving in the traffic. And that's what I'm saying about a big city. Like,
yeah,
it's lots of people. It's traffic. It's craziness. Broadway was amazing. The
music.
The
Anyone there
incredible.
That plays in Tennessee and has managed to even make $10 doing it.
Yeah, it is incredible.
It's incredible.
And don't get me wrong, the city is incredible. It's amazing. And on top of it,
we had good food. We talked to good people. Like, we had a fun time.
We had a great time, an amazing time. And we even drove out of Nashville a little bit. That was my favorite, getting out into the country a little bit and seeing that beautiful area.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. It's a gorgeous state. It was
you and I
wonderful.
both feel home in that state whenever we've gone.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the people are amazing. Everything is amazing. I just want to.
Yeah, and our
there.
trip started off a little wonky. I felt like we were in the episode of Seinfeld. We showed up. Our flights went good. So we tried to go to Nashville several months ago, and due to weather, we got stuck in Houston.
So we tried to go back. We tried to go there last May. We tried to do this trip. No kids.
Yeah, this was my Christmas present.
Yes.
Yeah, and we were going to actually go to Crime Con.
Yeah, I bought her tickets to Crime Con.
I was so excited to go, and we got stuck at the airport. And I'll wrap this up because I don't want to, this is not a lifestyle podcast, but it was a miserable experience. Like, we got stuck at the airport for 24 hours. We had to drop an insane amount of money to get home. People wouldn't refund us things. It was a nightmare.
Yeah, we got stuck in Dallas because of weather. Had to sleep on the floor in the Dallas airport.
Didn't know when we were going to get home.
Never got to Nashville. And finally, after a day and a half, Barely made it back to Tucson, and it was awful.
Yeah, and so this was kind of like us trying to do that again. So we got there, which was great. And I've never had this happen with a rental car company before, but we show up and there's a line. And not just like...
There's a lot of people.
It's an extensive amount of people. And nothing is happening. Nobody is moving. And even the people that are like going up to the front are not leaving the airport. They're not exiting out the doors.
No.
And so I start to eavesdrop on the customer, and they are telling everybody when they walk up to the airport rental car place, and it's all of them, it's a 2-hour plus wait to get your car.
Just to get your rental car. Mm-hmm. Because they have to clean them. They got to do all the things.
But they're not telling anybody why. Because I'm like, we made a reservation, and you have to like let them know when you are not only picking up your car, but when you're going to return your car. So I'm guessing in my head mathematically how that equates to you then renting out what cars you have. And so finally we get up to the front. And so I asked the lady, just for clarity, I'm like, we had a reservation. Like, how does this happen? Because if it's something that I did, I want to know in the future. And she just said, like, they were really short-staffed. I'm guessing some people didn't show up to work that day. And they were down to one kid who was washing and inspecting cars for return. And anyone who knows car rental places, you're not just dealing with one. The car rental people swap cars, like, it's a free-for-all. They're all working for each other. We rented through company A, but we got a car through company B, and anyways. So I said, well, was it just because I had just rented like a regular sized car, nothing fancy, nothing at all. And I said, is it just like this kind of car? Because if you tell me at this point, even that you've got like a minivan or a whatever, I'll take it. I don't care. I want a shower. We'd been up since like 3 a.m. And she said no, it's all cars, but they had an electric vehicle that no one wanted. And it would be ready in about 20 minutes. And I was like, done.
We're like, what's the price difference? She said, same price.
Yeah, same price. Like, we'll just give it to you. Great. Sounds good. So we get the car, and neither Ben or I have ever driven an electric car. We live like outside of the city. Electric cars would do us no good here. We drive too many miles.
I don't own one, and I don't plan on owning one.
Yeah, they are great. I think if you live close, but we couldn't even get to Phoenix and back without having to do like a 4-hour charge time. So we don't have one. And we walk out, and first off, I realized that we're like in parking row A. Cool, we don't have to walk very far. But then I see like the elite sign above, and I was like, and this is starting to spike Ben's anxiety, because the last thing he wants is to be driving something, one, he doesn't feel comfortable with, or two, that is insanely overpriced, that like we would never own in a million years.
Yeah. And
I guess I just was expecting like a Prius. No, we walk around the corner and it is a Mustang.
It's not a Mustang.
Electric car, which
it is an embarrassment to the Mustang name to call an electric car a Mustang.
So weird to me.
It's the ugly. We all know what it is. It's that stupid, ugly.
It looks like an SUV
Ford that they threw the horse on and called it a Mustang, but it is not. It's an embarrassment.
Actually, I loved driving it. I thought it was awesome. So I drove most of the time.
It got us from point A to point B, but
it did. It worked great, and we didn't have to ever go to the gas station. So win-win. But anyways, we went to Nashville. We had a great time.
You had a good week?
Yep. We met some people there. We went to Zany's Comedy Club and saw Dusty Slay, one of our favorite comics. And Ben loves it whenever we go places. I start making friends
Sierra
and talking.
Makes friends.
And so I am in Nashville.
She made friends, and they started following each other on Instagram away.
He has, I know, I should give them a shout out. He has a band. Like, I mean, of course, I was like, what are the odds that we like start talking to this cute, adorable couple in front of us? And he is, are you okay?
Yep, good, sorry.
He is a magician. A magician? He's not a magician.
Nope.
He's
a
a musician.
Yep.
And their name is Miller Holler. Millerholler. And I got on their Instagram and creeped a little bit. Great music. Awesome, adorable couple. But that's why I think I like Tennessee, because y'all talk to everybody anywhere you go. And so that's what I like to do. I make friends everywhere.
That's what I loved about, because we went to Knoxville a few years ago, and people talk to people. They say hello. Mm-hmm. They're kind. I mean, we were at a barbecue place sitting there.
Yeah.
And the table behind us was laughing and having a good time. And then they just turned and said hello to us. And we then ended up, in a 20-minute conversation?
Yeah, they had brought us into their fun that they were having.
And it's just, there's a lot of places in the world that aren't that way anymore.
Yeah.
And it's, I think that's the South for you, though.
Yeah. So we had a good time. So thanks, Nashville. Y'all did great. We can't wait to go back and see you guys again and keep the music going, because we loved it. All right. Now that we've talked about nonsense for several minutes, Ben and I are here recapping Season 2, Episode 4 of Unsolved Mysteries. We have 3 stories to go over with you guys, and I'm going to get us started with our first one, which this one is rough. I'm going to be honest with you guys. Do you remember what the story was about, Ben?
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's your typical, it's a murder.
It's a murder. Yeah.
It's terrible.
So 34-year-old divorcee. I didn't know until I think this show that I thought it was just like a divorced person. Divorcee and divorcee is the male and female. So there you guys go. Okay. Anna Anton moved to Lyson, Nebraska, a quiet farming town of about, at the time of the recording of Unsolved Mysteries, had about 1,200 people. Mm-hmm. Today, 831.
I was going to say, it's got to be
that last one was really important to count on the census there. 831. Located about 60 miles from Omaha. Crime is, in fact, so rare in that area that the county does not even have a jail. And
the whole county?
The whole county.
Wow.
And at the time, there was only 2 other officers. That's it. 2 sheriffs, no jail. So, I mean, I guess it goes to, this was literally one of those towns where nothing ever happened.
Okay.
So, this woman moves there. She and her estranged husband named Tom had been separated for several years. When they finally divorced in September of 1986, she starts looking for a new place to kind of start her life over. The following month, so October of that same year, she and 3 of her dogs moved into the first floor apartment of a place that the locals called, quote, the Pink House. And in the reenactment, the house is pink. I think they used the actual apartment. I looked it up. It's been demolished and taken down. All that's there is a plot of land that's currently for sale, if you're interested. Okay. She's a stranger to town. And because there's only 1,200 people living there,
everybody knows.
Everyone knew that a new person was there. But enter the mayor.
Dude, she was.
This lady is a piece of work. Because we get her, she comes back again for a quote later. But according to Mary Piper, the mayor of 1,200 people, she wants to let us know, and she says this with literally the most amount of disgust.
There's a lot of attitude behind it.
Yeah. That there was no rational reason for this woman to move to her town.
Pretty much.
She said
pretty much
that
she's not welcome.
People do not move here unless they have a job, family, or are returning back, and none of those fit her criteria. She was not saying this like, oh my gosh, it's really rare that we gain a new, citizen of our community because we don't have a lot to offer. Instead, this lady looks like she picked up a rotten egg and smelt it before she sat down.
She was not happy. that
she does not seem like a pleasant woman.
No. Kind of wondering how she became mayor.
Yeah, no kidding. So 10 years before settling in this tiny little town, Anna had a severe leg injury. Okay? That her leg and part of her face were actually badly scarred in a car accident. As a result, she kind of dragged her leg and walked with a cane. She also wore a lot of heavy makeup to try to cover up the fact that she had some scarring on her face. She was unemployed but planned to attend classes at a nearby community college in the near future. However, at the time, she depended on a small disability income and the kindness of her neighbors. And that's going to be key in this story. These people were more than happy to lend her a hand. In fact, one of them is interviewed. She ended up becoming really good friends with a lady who brought her groceries. And she made a big connection at the fellow church, St. Joseph's Catholic Church. And a lot of people that went to this church took turns picking her up to and from church. In fact, according to her neighbor Shirley, she appeared to be a very religious. She had high morals. She did not drink and would try to attend church daily if she could get a ride. So we're kind of getting a picture painted here. Shirley lived across the street from Anna and often was the one that took her grocery shopping. They became friends. And Anna began to confide in Shirley. She told Shirley that Tom, that's her ex-husband, had been involved in a large drug ring and that she had testified against him and other members of this gang drug ring people. She said that she was so afraid of the other members were going to try to come after her and harm her that that's one of the reasons she had moved away. And that she always refused to open the doors for strangers and lest she knew them or they could identify themselves. So her friend is in the reenactment is dropping off these groceries and she's kind of dumping this very heavy information onto her.
Just if you're trying to stay hidden from people.
Yeah.
You shouldn't go around telling people why you're trying to
Ben,
hide.
here you guys. Here's Ben's fatherly advice.
I'm just saying, if you're worried that people are looking for you, don't tell people that people are looking for you.
Fair point. So, one day after this friendship is formed, Anna gives Shirley an envelope.
And here we go.
Here we go, guys. Buckle up. And says to her, if anything should happen to me, I want you to open this envelope and call the number listed inside of it. Full stop. That's it. What would you do in that situation?
I don't know. I don't know. But clearly this happens a lot in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just worried about how many people are out there that are afraid that their demise is imminent.
Yeah. And that they know who potentially has problems with them.
I'm worried.
You're worried.
I'm concerned.
Okay. So she also tells her friend that she had chosen the apartment because her neighbor, his name is Greg, who lived above her, is, what is he, the chief of police or something?
He's the chief of police.
He's the chief of police. And so there's always a car parked outside. What, honey? In the apartment upstairs is the chief of police.
Yeah.
Who leaves his car parked, his take-home ride, and the two other officers that work in the same department. There's three guys that are running this town.
I want to know what it takes to be chief of police in this town.
We're going to learn quickly. Not much. Okay? Especially if you have to work with the mayor. That was probably everyone's oh, I got to work with that lady?
I'm out.
No. This girl peaked in high school and now she's trying to run the town like freaking Lindsay Lohan in Mean Girls. She was awful. So, December 15th, 1989, a neighbor...
I'm sorry.
That is... Number 2, I'm going to take your water rights away from you.
No, you won't even let me have snacks.
No snacks, and now you're going to lose
Now
your water privileges.
What is this? Golly, I'm already suffering through this thing.
A neighbor saw Anna being dropped off at her apartment after she went shopping with a friend. The next day, December 16th, Shirley, the neighbor, brings by some groceries. She is surprised to find the back door is locked. She knocks on the door.
I would hope it's locked. If you're worried people are looking for you, you should lock your doors.
Yeah, that's also the second clue, is that she didn't lock her doors, but she was worried someone was coming to look for her. So she starts knocking on the windows, knocking on the doors, calling out the name. 0 responses. So she comes back that evening and makes several more attempts to try to find this woman.
Hey, this is a good friend.
Yes,
she is a good friend.
100%. Well, also, this is the same lady that just gave you an envelope several days ago and said, hey, if something happens to me, call that number. And then before you know it, you're showing up and she's MIA.
I'm saying this lady's a good friend. She's driving her to church. She's driving her to get groceries. She's bringing her groceries.
Yes.
I mean,
yeah.
Good friend.
So Anna seemed to have disappeared as mysteriously as she had arrived. That's the quote from Unsolved Mysteries for you. At Shirley's insistence, Greg, the upstairs / chief of police / neighbor, agrees to help.
The upstairs.
Also,
chief.
he owns the building. He owns this apartment complex, which I found out in other research. Oh. So he is the landlord, the chief of police, the upstairs neighbor. Okay?
Okay.
But this is the next day, December 17th. He goes and he unlocks the door to Anna's apartment using his spare key. They go into the apartment together, thinking that maybe she had fallen and was unable to get up. Life alert. However, there is no sign of her. He said it looked like she hadn't been there for several days. Shirley seems to be the only one concerned because they were supposed to meet, and it was not like Anna to do no call, no show. I will say, I found this out in the side research. Anna's dogs were found locked in the basement. They're okay. Just so everyone knows. Another neighbor reported seeing someone letting the dogs out after the 15th. Groceries she had brought a few days earlier were gone. In the bedroom, they'd found an outfit of clothes, clean and laid out. Shirts, jeans, all the way down to underwear. Strangely, the neighbor notes that her shoes, which she always wore, were left behind. And she says to us, especially in the winter, if you take your purse, coat, and cane, it seems only reasonable that you would take your shoes as well.
I would hope. I mean, if I'm getting dressed, usually
if
the shoes
someone
is part
decides
of it.
Based on my shoes that I'm missing,
well,
I'm never gonna go. No one's ever gonna solve that problem.
If you go in and there's one pair of shoes missing,
who owns one pair of shoes?
I don't know. I mean, I at least own a couple.
Yeah. I was just like, if that is the minimum of which people get concerned about, that there's a pair of shoes missing, no one's ever going to come looking for me.
You're absolutely
right. I own several pairs.
And they're usually in every room in the house.
Are they?
We can find them.
Do you want to talk about it right now with our friends? Do you want to have this? You want to have this conversation right now?
They saw a pair of shoes in the hallway. They wouldn't be
if someone came to my house and saw my clothes laid out neatly on the bed, they would first say, something has happened here. This was
that is not Sierra behavior.
Someone staged this scene.
Sierra would never do that.
She would not do that. She would have changed her outfit 18 times because it didn't feel right.
And there'd be a pile in multiple places.
Yeah.
And shoes would be everywhere.
Everywhere. because they have to fit right or it doesn't work. Okay, so now the friend is even more concerned. So she starts rifling through her friend's drawers and finds an address book. And she says to the chief of police, I think I'm going to start calling these people and see if anyone has heard from her. Okay? And he says, I'll do it. Technically, that's my job.
Technically, it is.
Glad for you to finally show up and do something.
Nice of you to join the party, pal.
Yep. A few hours later, Greg calls Shirley and says he'd called all the numbers in the book and Anna was at none of those places. He also said that he had just remembered that she had taken off for an unannounced trip. So don't worry about it. Shirley then asks him to file a missing persons report. He tells her, let's give it a few more days and see if Anna shows up. Finally, December 23rd, 7 days after she disappeared, he files the report with the county sheriff. By then, her mother, Grenadine, was also starting to become concerned because she had yet to receive her Christmas card.
Fair.
It's the 23rd and it hasn't shown up yet. Where does she get off? Exactly. The only explanation is that something tragic has happened. I just thought that was wild. Like, that's how you figured out.
That's where it got you worried about
like
your daughter.
Long distance phone calls back then. You couldn't always afford to call family members. No.
You sent a card.
Yeah.
You wrote a letter.
Yeah.
Sent a telegram.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So very quickly, we find Anna's body is discovered. So Anna has been deceased. She's been murdered. Yeah, so it jumps to it very quickly.
Well, they say it was 11 days after she disappeared.
Yeah, so 7 days filed missing person report, and 11 days later, they get a phone call informing them that a body had been found on a rural road outside of town.
Yeah.
So, investigator Kerger. That cannot be right.
I can't wait for you to try to say that again.
Keeger. Investigator Keeger visits Shirley's body and, sees that she has been shot twice in the chest and that she's been out there for a couple of days. She's also not wearing any clothing.
Well, and he looks at the scene. He determines she wasn't killed here. She was murdered somewhere else and she was dumped there.
Yes, exactly. So he tells all the officers in the reenactment, start canvassing the area, see if anyone's heard or seen anything. I don't think there's a lot picked up from there, but it seems like the next stop was back at her apartment with her friends in that area. And he ends up tracking down Shirley, the friend with the envelope. I am guessing, and she has way more self-control than I do. She hands him the envelope, and he takes care of calling the number. It sounds like she never did. Would you have called the number?
So my friend handed it to me?
Yeah.
And said, if something happens to me?
Yeah.
No, I probably wouldn't have. I'd given it to the police.
I would have called it probably before something even happened.
So you would have inserted yourself
100%,
into the investigation.
Without any question. Yep.
Yeah. And
yeah.
There's the difference.
So there's the difference.
No, I would have given it
So Shirley gives this envelope that Anna had given her, and he asked her, why did Anna give this to you? And she tells him that Anna was afraid of her ex-husband. His name was Tom, like I said. She believed that he had probably killed Anna. She told investigators about how he was reportedly involved in narcotics and was a heavy drug dealer, and that Anna was very fearful of her life. Within a short period of time, however, though, investigators are able to determine that Tom not only has an alibi, but is not involved in drug activity whatsoever. There was
all lies.
All lies. There was nothing.
So all that buildup that we gave you guys, Nothing.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about
it. It was
Untrue.
not true.
So that's why she could leave her back door unlocked. Because
she really was not
in danger
hiding
of her
from
husband.
an ex-husband.
From a drug ring.
In fact, Anna's friends tell police officers that he was quiet, pleasant, and very sweet and good to her. So nobody at this point can understand why in the world she fabricated this story for no apparent reason. A friend of hers from Iowa believed that her friend might have started to suffer from, quote, delusions. And I found some stuff on my side research that might support that. So,
yeah, but we don't know.
Yeah. On the day that her body was found, the police officers working the case agreed to meet at the Highway Cafe to compare notes. Also looked up this place.
I want to go there.
It just closed.
Dang it.
They sold it. It seemed like it was a lady who had owned it. They were well known for pies and hot beef. I don't know what hot beef is.
I'm willing to try it. I love.
So it was an old abandoned gas station. They had a Facebook page where she shared happy birthdays to people. And they were part of a community fundraiser every year where they auctioned off pies from this place.
I love a good old small town diner.
Yeah. And over 35 years, they didn't redecorate anything once. It was legitimately the same thing for the whole time that she owned that.
That's awesome. I'm here for it. I bet the food was amazing.
Yes. So the investigators, because, I should know, her body was found on an Indian reservation. So
they say that later.
You've got the Indian reservation, you've got, and I don't know how, so this was a jurisdictional nightmare. So you have a handful of law enforcement officers. They all decide to meet at this cafe, and they're going to start trying to work together and compare notes, which is something you don't always see in investigations, right? So they meet, and Greg, the police officer, chief of police that lived upstairs, obviously seemed to know her the most. Clearly, she was a tenant of his. So, investigator begins to question him.
The state investigator that's running the investigation.
Yeah. And literally within minutes of sitting down to this, conversation, meeting of the minds, he turns to her and says, "Were you and her ever intimately involved?" A fair question. I'm not sure what prompted that, but...
The state investigator asked the chief of police.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He says no and takes a sip of his coffee, but starts to look real nervous real quick.
Looks a little uncomfortable.
Yeah. So at this point, he says to him again, "Were you guys intimately involved with each other?" And this is when he says, "Yes, the night she moved in." At that point, he says, "You know what, Napoleon? You can leave." He kicks him out of the meeting.
Well, he's pissed. They interview him. He's like,
he's like, "This, you are the chief of police, and not that you can't be intimate with somebody in all consenting relationships, but this is something you should have disclosed immediately up front."
Yeah, you should have let us know a while ago. And then when you did get asked it, you lied.
You lied. Exactly. So the investigators are shocked that Greg would lie during a murder investigation. Because of this and other details of the crime, he began to look at Greg as a suspect. On December 29th, 2 days after Anna's body was found, investigators and lab technicians performed a test in the apartment to search for bloodstains. They used luminol, and they did it throughout her apartment and the upstairs stairs leading to Greg's apartment. While they're doing this, Greg is upstairs. He owns this property. He's home. They're downstairs spraying luminol, having conversations. They can hear him upstairs moving around. And they start to get sus that he's like trying to eavesdrop and listen to them as they're doing this test. So they spray this luminol, which for anyone who doesn't know, makes blood hemoglobins glow under a black light, even if they've been washed away. Unless you use OxyClean, then that gets rid of them. I learned that from another true crime documentary.
Well, I'm really glad you shared that with people.
They found traces of blood in the living room and dining room of Anna's apartment, and the trail of blood just outside the door was quite heavy. And it also, no joke, Hansel and Gretel's them all the way up to the front door of Greg's apartment.
Sure does.
Yeah. Investigators at this point decide they need a search warrant. It seems as if this got delayed due to how small this place was. And it's like New Year's weekend. This is like December 29th. It's a Friday, I think, when they're doing this. So they're not able to get the search warrant for a few days. During the investigation of Anna's apartment, Greg left his apartment and traveled to Fremont, Nebraska, 35 miles south. And he's gone. Okay?
Disappears.
He is gone. So we're at 5 days later. They finally got the warrant. They searched Greg's apartment. They found a mop that had traces of blood on it, and blood was later shown to be the same type of Anna's in the bedroom closet. They found a military-style coat with several bloodstains on it, and they also proved to be the same blood type as Anna's. It's also found in the police car. Although there were no signs of the struggle in the apartment, it seems clearly that something had to have happened there. So, investigators start checking into Anna's background. At this same time, we kind of start to learn that her and this police officer had met before. They had an earlier connection. So when she lived in Arnold's Park, she had a very different life than the one that appeared to be the one she was living at this new town. They call her... Do you remember what they called her?
A bar floozy.
A bar floozy.
He says that's what they called her.
She often flirted with men at bars. While there in 1986, she was introduced to Greg. The two became friends, comparing their backgrounds and respective divorces. They ended up going to several bars together, and when she told him that she was actually looking to start over her life, he was the one that suggested that he had an unoccupied apartment in the building that he owned, and that it was a friendly, safe place to live, and that she'd be welcome to come stay there. So we start to kind of see how maybe things have gotten out of control. The investigators believe that Anna moved there with the anticipation, because the man asked her to move into the building that he owned, that maybe this would be the sparkings of a relationship. Possibly even leading to marriage.
No, it didn't.
It didn't. So she is quickly led on and realizes that he actually had a girlfriend. And according to Shirley, the friend across the street, Anna seemed to be like obsessively preoccupied with the fact that he was not only seeing somebody else, but that they were unmarried and sleeping together. And this is where, is it possible that she was struggling with some mental health issues and was suffering from things of delusion? Because on several occasions while laying in bed, she could hear Greg and his girlfriend upstairs being romantic with each other, and it bothered her so much that she would turn her stereo up, throw her head under a pillow, and try to drown out the sounds. And then it got to the point where she started to get holy water and sprinkle it up and down the stairs and on the door handles, trying to convince him of his sinful ways. So I'm wondering if maybe something was going on between this and the drug dealing ex-boyfriend, if maybe she was suffering some sort of mental health delusions.
I have no idea.
Yeah. But overall, this is throwing investigators through the ringer because I think they're just trying to figure out.
They throw a lot of this stuff out there. I'm like, dude.
To me, it was very obvious.
They were together at some point and maybe not.
Yeah.
There's blood in her apartment. There's blood that leads to his apartment. You have her blood on some of his clothes in his apartment. Then they even say that someone says they saw him carrying something really big to the trunk of his car.
Yeah, I wasn't even going to get into that, but there's all these circumstantial reports.
What does it matter that she was at a bar flirting with guys and what? Like, she
wasn't married. She's allowed to be doing these things. Yeah.
What matters is that they have a connection. There's evidence.
Evidence that they were intimately involved, and there is a blood trail literally leading from his front door to her door.
That's when they said that, I'm like, okay, we got the case. And then they started getting into all this stuff of her at the bar and this. I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
What I know, you've already laid it out.
Where's the mystery here?
The case is laid out.
Yeah.
I was almost like, move on. Like,
yeah, I was really confused too. So the investigator lets us know with all of this information that he's gathered, he believes that Greg was intoxicated. He was known to be a heavy drinker. Maybe she had been drinking too. They get into some sort of altercation about the fact that she was under the impression that this was going somewhere. He was under the impression that it wasn't. He's seen multiple women. I don't think the women were all aware that he was seen all. Obviously, that leads to a lot of complications.
Yeah.
Emotions got heated. He fires off 2 rounds from a revolver Smith & Wesson, which he owned. And because he was a police officer, he would have had the knowledge and the wherewithal to remove her clothing, wash her body, set up the apartment to make it look clean and organized, and dump her body somewhere that would have been obnoxious to try to deal with it if it was ever found, because it's on an Indian reservation, which creates problems with jurisdictional issues and so on and so forth. The investigator believes that Greg believes he committed the perfect crime. I thought that was a little bit of a stretch. I think this was a drunken idiot who used his knowledge of what he had to try to get away with something.
Yeah.
However, he becomes the prime suspect. So we're now to January 6th. This is all evolved in a very short time, which also makes me think there's no way he thought he was the perfect criminal, because within weeks, this guy now has a warrant out for his arrest.
Yeah.
So he's obviously fired for his job. And January 7th, his car is found in a car lot in Fremont. And on the 15th, the one that he had acquired in Fremont was found at the Houston International Airport. It was discovered that he had purchased a ticket from there to Belize, to Central America. Someone had used it. There was no proof it was him, and the FBI has since gotten involved with the case. So here is our mystery. No one knows where this guy is.
But he's wanted.
But he's wanted for first-degree murder. He was the chief of police. However, many of the residents are surprised that Greg would be accused of something like this.
I bet the mayor
According to the mayor, there was never any complaints about him. He loved police work. He was a hard worker and respected by everyone. The mayor goes on to say, although he appeared to be aloof, unemotional, and humorless, he was also competent and cooperative. That is a direct quote from the mayor. What does she think of herself?
I don't know. The lady's an interesting...
Yeah. Other officers said he was good and professional, knowledgeable of guns. I guess that's all that required to be the chief of police in this city. And skilled at reading fingerprints. So, and for a while, half the town thought he was innocent and that this was just like he was only fleeing because he was scared. And this is the problem with a small town, especially with the mayor's attitude, is like this stranger comes to town and then she goes and gets herself murdered for being a bar floozy. It's like, what was she wearing? And the man that's accused of it, who is carrying on with multiple women and has a drinking problem, is probably innocent. So that's my soapbox about that.
All right.
Okay. So. Update. Well, first off, I will say the husband was completely cleared of all ex-husband, never involved in any sort of drug activity. So we'll put that out there because they didn't tell us that as much in the Unsolved Mystery.
They just dropped it that he wasn't involved. He'd never been arrested or anything. So
yeah.
And I think, I'm pretty certain he's innocent because, I don't know, the blood trail led to a dude's apartment.
Yes. Okay. So, update. Captured.
It took a little while.
This case was re-aired again on Lifetime Television for Women on February 17th, 1993. And a viewer who was interviewed and is very excited to be interviewed.
That guy was so excited that he was the tipster.
He was here for his hair was combed. He had a new outfit on. He had the biggest grin on his face.
Smile on his face.
Recognized it as a coworker named Gregory James, or AKA Jim Weber. A construction worker who installed.
I knew the guy. I just knew it.
He was just.
But they said that was his name, but I knew him as this. I just couldn't believe it.
Just could not believe it.
It was definitely him.
Yeah. So it turns out he had actually worked as a mercenary for a little while, like in Uganda or some crazy place. Had tried to make a bunch of money in parts of South America. Failed at that. Made it back to Mexico, crossed back through the country through Arizona, made his way to Florida, and changed his ID, got a new birth certificate, never owned a vehicle, no bank accounts, or property. So he was flying way under the radar.
But he did get a driver's license.
And that was actually one of the first things that got him into trouble, is that his social security number started coming back, because this is about the time that they're doing quicker turnaround checks on him for employees, started coming back as not a real number. And so he had lost several jobs because of that. So he moved to Florida, falls in love with the woman, meets there. She has no clue that he is a fugitive. He's arrested. Greg tells the other police chief early on the morning of December 16th that he awoke to find Anna's body on his kitchen floor. This is what he starts telling everybody. No clue what happened. Yep. He also discovered 2 spent cartridges and decided the best thing he could just do is make it look like she disappeared. So he did all of those things, stripped her body, washed it, drove up north, put her in this rural off woods place, and that he obviously had a problem drinking at the time, and that he and Anna often spent time drinking heavily together. They had been doing so the night of her death, and he has no recollection of what happened. Liar. But he did remember passing out in bed. So in 1994, he pleads no contest to manslaughter, guilty with tampering with evidence, and around the same time, he married the woman who he'd met in Florida, who didn't know he was a fugitive, but now knows that he is, and was given a sentence of 8 to 19 years in prison. After his sentence, he's maintained his innocence and suggests that a former girlfriend of his must have wandered into the apartment and killed Anna in a fit of jealousy and rage. August 22nd, 2002, he's released on parole after serving 8 years. He and Anna's former duplex was demolished in 2008, and he is now married to the woman still, living in Florida. He did an interview professing his innocence just not too long ago. I'm going to link it in the show notes. So there you go. Boom.
Boom.
This is sound because I feel like there was no justice for this woman. I think she was suffering from some mental health issues other than maybe that neighbor. She didn't have a lot of people advocating for her. Her mom's not even interviewed in this. Like,
I'm just crazy.
And he serves 8 years.
And he gets a manslaughter instead of a murder charge.
Yeah. And
that's crazy.
Fled. And he was in law enforcement. We should be holding these men to higher standards.
It was, I was not happy with the end result.
Yeah.
I'm glad they caught him, but I will say the officer charged him with first degree.
Yes. Yeah, he did.
But they got bumped down to manslaughter by the DA. So.
And why?
So he could get a guilty, so the guy could
they found the gun.
Going to trial.
They had the gun. They had the blood stains. It was in his car.
It was a slam dunk case.
Yes.
But
I will say I did read some note somewhere, and this could not be true, that county, because it was losing residents, was struggling heavily to like pay their bills. They never really recovered from the last recession, and that the concern of the cost of the trial that it would cost for them to put a trial on, that the city was where they could not afford to even put on a trial.
I just, at the end of the day, people still.
I know that's not an
excuse
to like not.
People still deserve justice for the crimes
100%.
committed against them.
Okay. Tell us about the next one. We'll kind of blow through kind of quick. I don't know why these ones are on Unsolved Mysteries, but they're here.
Because Facebook didn't exist.
Fair point.
This is why.
Fair point. This is about I guess this is just one way you could have done these lost love stories.
How else?
Yeah, I don't know.
So it's another story of a lost love, and it's another story of a family that was separated.
Yeah.
But this one it was pretty terrible. They interview one of the boys. The first guy they interview is Robert Pierce.
It broke my heart.
And he tells about his upbringing. So this is his upbringing in Locust Grove, Oklahoma. His mother and father was Edith and Top. That's right, Top. Like
T-O-P.
Like a top hat.
Mm-hmm.
Edith and Top Rogers. And they grew up in the 50s. And he tells stories that they were extremely poor. And his dad and his mom were just
abusive, drunk
heavily, were abusive.
Yeah.
His dad beat the crap out of him and his mom. He even tells a story that one day his dad was beating on his mom, and he picked up a piece of wood and went after his dad, and his dad beat the tar out of him, and even then threw a kitchen knife at him, and then went back to finish beating his mom. And they had 6 kids.
Yeah. And he said, like, they had nothing. They said that they wouldn't eat for days. He
said that at one point his parents were gone for several days and they didn't eat, and some local people.
He was so weak. He said the kid, they couldn't get out of bed because they hadn't had food or water in days, and the parents were nowhere to be found.
Just on their drunken binge.
Garbage, humans.
Some neighbors brought them food to eat.
Yeah.
So this was their upbringing. So in 1960, it was brought before the state, and the state deemed the parents unfit to continue to parent these people. And I think we can all agree that was the right choice. So all of the kids were then taken from the family.
Yeah.
So this is more of the tragedy. 6 months later, Edith, the mother, committed suicide by swallowing poison.
Yep.
And they let the kids go back for the funeral.
Mm-hmm.
Their dad was there with police and in handcuffs because their dad had been arrested in Arkansas for killing a man in a fight.
Yep.
Man, just horrible people.
These are the kind of people that should have never had children.
Clearly not.
Yeah.
So they tell a story. That's the last time he saw his family, all of his siblings. They literally are laying their mom to rest, and their dad is getting taken away in handcuffs. And then they're all taken and adopted out into different homes.
Yes.
So that's the last time they've seen each other. So now they're on a quest to try to find each other.
Yeah.
Another brother. Obviously, they all have different names because they were all
Which, makes things complicated as they're adopted out. Their last names are legally changed.
And they were all young. One of them was only a year old at the time, their youngest brother. But John Rieger, he sends a letter to the department there in Oklahoma.
The Oklahoma Department of Human Services.
Yeah. And his sister, Celia Wengler is her name now. She'd actually sent a letter practically at the same time.
Yeah.
And they get to meet. They
get both of these letters, and then they put these two in contact with each other.
So in 1984, they were reunited.
Mm-hmm.
Did you see the truck?
I knew you were going to do it. It's so like awesome. It was a blue, Toyota Tacoma, the original, or Toyota pickup, sorry.
Just the Toyota pickup.
It was beautiful.
It was gorgeous.
Yeah.
Beautiful truck. Loved it. So he rolls up. And, I will say this. It was really cool to see these people
connect.
And how loving and caring they are for each other with the horrific childhood. And clearly, and that just goes to shout out to the people that adopted them and then raised them right, And they even say, it was a blessing that we were adopted out. It's terrible that they weren't able to stay together, but I think Robert says, I'm glad we were. I think that was the best thing for us.
Yeah.
But then 6 months later, they end up meeting up with Robert. So Robert, John, and Celia all finally meet up.
Yep.
And they even...
So now all three of these people are on Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah.
Because there's 6 kids total. 3 of them have been reunited and have spent time together. And those 3 go on Unsolved Mysteries asking help finding...
They do say that they had found another brother named Vernon. It is clear that Vernon wants nothing to do with any of this.
I got some more information on that. I'll get to it at the end of our episode.
Because they mentioned that they had met up with Vernon. They were reunited, but then they never bring Vernon back in.
Yeah.
That they then tell the story that these 3 go together to their old house and see it, the house they were raised. And I will say one of the crazy parts of the story is they say they go to the grave of their mother and father. Now his dad is dead. And Robert says, I hated the man.
Yeah.
He said, as an adult, I wanted to go back and pretty much say, I wanted to give him a chance to try to do what he did to me again.
Like now that I'm an adult, I'm a grown man, try it. Yeah.
Try it. And he says he saw his dad's grave and instantly, this is crazy. He says, what does he say? I forgave my father and I wanted him there to be able to hug him in hopes that my father would say he's sorry. And I could tell my father, I'm sorry. I'm like, sorry for what?
Yeah.
Why would you? But it just goes to show the love a child has for a parent, even though parents...
It breaks my heart that parents exploit this.
Yeah.
Because kids will forgive their parents 1,001 times yet this is the one or the 2 people that are supposed to
protect.
Be your safest spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When he said that, I was like, wow.
Wow.
That's crazy that you would even be willing to apologize. But he said all his hate, his anger for
I think there was a part of them too. It seemed like for them to go back to their house, and they'd mentioned several times that reconnecting was one to try to, obviously these are your siblings, but to also they were ready for the most part to move past their childhood.
But also to be together.
Yes, and to do that together. Yeah.
So that's... Anyways, I'll let you finish her out there.
Yeah. So they are hoping that they can find the last 2 brothers, Billy and Joey, so they can bring the whole family back together again. And that's where Unsolved Mystery leaves us. Update? Solved.
They found him.
Both Billy, now at the time 31 years old or 30-year-old, and Charles Chuck saw the broadcast and realized that they were the missing brothers. October 27th, 1989, Rusty drove to his sister's homes where the siblings were reunited. Interestingly, we find out that Rusty had lived less than 30 miles away from John and had mutual friends and had met before.
In social gatherings.
That is nuts.
That was crazy.
That was crazy. However, until recently, obviously, they had no idea that they were brothers. Later that day, Chuck arrived at the airport and was reunited with his siblings. So 5 of the 6 siblings were all reunited. And it seems like a couple of them have passed away. I went through and read their obituaries. Their obituaries mention like their siblings. So I'm guessing that they must have stayed connected.
I thought I saw that Celia had passed away.
I don't think I saw Celia's. I seen the 2 brothers things passed away.
So I found something on a Celia Wagler.
Oh, okay.
That she'd passed away in 2024. I don't know if it's her, but the timeline adds up. It says she was born in the 50s. She was from Oklahoma.
Oh, okay.
And
did you read her obituary, or were you just on?
Well, I did, but it didn't really give a lot of information.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of hoping to find
something.
Something that. Sorry, someone was calling, but so I actually don't know if it is her.
Yeah.
Officially, but yeah.
Okay.
But she was only 66.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So I will say I was trying to do some more research to see if there was any information on the other brother. If it was Vernon. Yeah. So I found, now this is Reddit, so take it with what you will, but this story was posted on Reddit, like the transcript from it. And there's several comments of people talking about their shared experiences of adoption and growing up in abusive homes and all of that. And a lady posted this, and I'm going to read it to you. I am the adopted sister of Johnny Lee. My parents adopted him when he was 4, and when he was 8, the family adopted me. I was only a 1-month-old, and Johnny actually was allowed to give me my name. I know that when Vernon was located, he was not receptive to being part of any sort of reunion. He did not want to have contact with any of the family. That's what my brother had told me, or adopted brother, at the time when they found him. The siblings were reunited and felt that they should respect Vernon's wishes, and that's why there was no more said about Vernon really ever. It never even got brought up, it seems like, in the later part of their family history. We have to remember that these children were abused, tortured, and witnessed cruelty that most people cannot imagine. It might have just been too much trauma. My brother often reminded me that Vernon was 13 years old before the social workers got involved.
He saw a lot.
Mm-hmm. It means he had full 13 years of the abuse and torture and trauma to deal with on behalf of his parents.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. They literally said that they had reunited with... They found him. Vernon, and that was it. Then they left it at that.
Yeah.
And I kind of figured he didn't want... And you know what? The same thing. I'm not going to judge a man by...
No.
I have not walked a mile in those shoes. I
know, so that's what most of the people on Reddit were saying. Like, nobody knows. Maybe he had chosen to get therapy. Maybe he hadn't. Some people just choose to put something down on the shelf and never pick it up again, and that's how they dealt with it. There could have maybe, and I will say, as the oldest, I imagine that there was a lot of guilt that he could not step in and keep his siblings safe.
Yeah.
And so for whatever reason, anyways, I just thought I'd give people, it seems like they located him. We don't know what kind of life he lived. It seems like for the most part, these kids all went to decent families and ended up having healthy, happy childhoods as much as they could, and went on to live. I read that one of them owned a tree business and enjoyed working on old cars. It seems like they went on to be good members of society and enjoyed getting to reconnect with the people that wanted to be there. So There you go. There's that. All right, Ben.
There's our reunion story. Lots of reunion stories and unsolved mysteries. So, all right, hold on. Let me go to my notes here.
Oh, I'll give us a real quick shout out to make sure to follow us on social media, because I keep forgetting to do that. I think I've only done it at the beginning once.
You're supposed to do it at the beginning.
I know. You're supposed to remind me of these things,
Ben.
I'm
supposed to do a lot of things.
I know. So we have a Facebook discussion group, which after every episode is published, you are welcome to hop on over there and join a discussion where we talk about each week's episode. And I love to hear people's thoughts and theories on different things. That is on Facebook, Unsolved Couple podcast discussion group. We also have a TikTok and Instagram called Unsolved Couple Pod. And we also have a YouTube channel that we post. I post a little bit longer content there, videos, updates, highlights, reels, and all of our episodes are also there to listen to as well. And that's Unsolved Couple Podcast on YouTube. Okay, Ben, go ahead.
All right. This is another murder. And it's going to be the murder of Ralph Probst.
Yeah. This is a crazy one.
It is. April 10th, 1967. What was happening that day, Sierra?
Wait, what was the day?
April 10th, 1967.
April 10th? I don't know, a baseball game?
Well, they tell you. It's the Oscars. The Academy Awards.
Didn't we just have the Oscars?
It was last night.
Oh. I don't know. I
didn't watch it because
I'm not into that scene.
Nope. But it was a big deal back then. Okay? Well, Ralph and his wife, Marlene, they're hanging out and they're watching the Oscars because it's a big deal.
Yeah.
Just like everyone in the 80s was watching Unsolved Mysteries. You know, they're sitting around.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal. Okay. Marlene falls asleep and a little past 10 o'clock, she hears a loud noise. She wakes up and she sees a cloud of smoke in her kitchen.
Yeah.
And goes in and her husband is lying on the ground, dead, shot in the back of the head.
I cannot imagine. You are asleep on the couch.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing you remember is the red carpet walks, and that's what you wake up to.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we get a little background on Ralph. He was a Cook County Sheriff Deputy. They don't tell you this. It's important to know. Do you know what city is in Cook County?
No.
Chicago.
Oh.
So
okay.
He's covering Chicago. You have the Chicago PD, but then you also have your county deputies.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
So he's a Cook County Sheriff Deputy, and he'd been one only for about 3 years. They interview his friend, Bob Borowski.
Yeah, poor Bob.
Yeah, they were partners. Bob, clearly, they were
very close.
They weren't just partners, they were very good friends.
Yeah.
They had met shortly after Ralph had graduated from the academy, and they were assigned to the elite tactical squad.
I thought it was very cute how he bragged about this.
Yeah, they were.
This was like the best of the best. Very precise.
Yeah.
Police work.
So
clean. Their uniforms were pressed. Their boots were polished.
And they were partners together.
And they were partners.
So they're on this elite squad together.
And they took it very serious.
Took it super seriously. And Ralph was known to be strict on the rules.
Letter of the law.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He'd made some enemies.
Yeah, which is wild. He made some enemies like inside the police department because he followed the rules.
Mm-hmm. So they start investigating this because obviously, he's been shot, he's been killed. This is a big deal.
This wasn't self-inflicted. This was, he had been murdered.
So who had it out for Ralph? What do we have some suspects? Like I said, he was strict on the rules. Their first suspect they had was Sam DiStefano. Are you good?
Yeah, I just wanted a piece of candy.
Oh, you wanted a snack?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, I've told my stories.
Oh, so you're done.
Yeah.
I'm
just here now for the ride.
You're just the princess of the show.
Passenger princess.
All right. So the first person they start looking into is Sam DiStefano. Okay. He's a mobster.
Very quickly, they're like, mob.
Well, it is the 60s.
It is the 60s. He was part of this elite squad, and he was known to not be easily bribed. And he was a problem.
Sam DiStefano was in jail for conspiracy. And, of course, he complained about stomach problems. So he gets to go to the hospital.
Oh, yeah, this reenactment was wild bonanzas.
Okay. He's in the hospital. All right.
Okay.
Well, Bob and Ralph get assigned to guard him in the hospital. Mm-hmm. And they show up. And I'm just wondering, who were the cops there before? Okay.
The cops that were still going to be alive to tell the tale. That's who it was.
And Sam has got visitors.
Females
He's
got a robe on. He's eating sushi.
He's got,
He's turned this hotel room or this hospital room into a luxury hotel room.
Yeah. Well, Ralph walks in and says, Get
Everybody out.
You can't have visitors. And, you want that food? No, you have to eat the hospital food. He rips the food away from him, and then he grabs him and cuffs him to the bed. Says, the rules are you got to be cuffed to the bed. And Sam DiStefano, he ain't happy about that. Mm-mm. He says, you better watch your back. I'm coming for you. All right?
Okay.
That's your first suspect. Mm-hmm. That seems sus. All right? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like case closed.
Okay. So that's your first suspect. Then they start looking at the evidence. First evidence they look at is, all right, he was shot with a .41 caliber Magnum, which is actually a pretty rare gun. It had just been manufactured.
Oh, yeah, that's right. There was only a handful of them.
There's only 2,000 in the U.S., so they're trying to track that down. That doesn't go anywhere. Then Marlene is a suspect. I feel like
it should have gone somewhere. There's only 2,000 of them. Everyone's got to register their handguns when they buy them. No, you don't. You don't have to, or you were...
So...
Are you saying mobsters don't register their handguns?
And it's the 60s.
Okay.
So anyways, Marlene is also a suspect.
This poor woman.
Well, at the end of the day, she's the only one in the house, right? Mm-hmm. Well,
and they thought her story was suspicious.
They thought her story was suspicious that she saw a cloud of smoke, and on top of it, the glass from the window in the kitchen. Because the window in the kitchen is shattered. It's outside of the...
I will say that I was like, my eyebrows, as much as my Botox allowed, went up a little bit.
The glass
is on the outside.
Is on the outside. It's in the yard. Okay? So they run an experiment. They shoot from 15 feet away, and glass falls inside. There's no smoke. But then they do it again from 2 inches away. And there is clear as day a cloud of smoke that goes into the house, and the glass falls.
Was that crazy to you?
Yeah, I'm trying to think about it, but I'm not a science guy, so I'm...
Yeah, the glass fell towards the shooter instead of away. So the bullet going through the glass caused...
I think it was the bullet and the...
I don't know. But yeah, and it also had a cloud of smoke was
science
visible.
Guy,
yeah.
So I'm sure someone has an answer, and it's really easy for them to see it, but no.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
bunch of science stuff, and they figured out that the wife actually was telling the truth.
Yeah. So now they believe the wife, she's not a suspect, but they realize then they do measurements. The guy had to have been at least 5 feet 11 inches to be able to make the shot because of how tall the window was.
And obviously 2 inches away from the window. He had to be up in their business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the window wasn't low.
And it was the only window in the house not covered.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's what they think. They're also saying, okay, we think this is a setup. This is the only window that wasn't covered. And they, for some reason, they got really hung up that they didn't think that he sat and waited.
Yeah, that didn't make sense to me.
It didn't make sense.
That they said that there just was no way in that neighborhood or whatever that he could have sat and waited.
Till he had an opportunity on Ralph.
Yeah, so that he had to know that he was going to watch the Oscars and get up at 10:30 and go into the kitchen.
They thought he had been set up that he was either going to make a phone call or he was going to receive a phone call at that time. Mm-hmm. So he knew that he would be in there at that time.
I don't know. It was
make
weird.
The shot. Anyways, they get really hung up on that. They think it was a setup, but they can't really explain it.
It's just a red herring.
So, yeah. And so they start looking into what Ralph had done before. Earlier in the day, he'd stopped by a gas station and made some phone calls, but they don't know to who. We don't know. That's it. Yeah. Right? Then I guess they talked to his partner. What did I say? His partner was Bob. And Bob had said that Ralph had told him not to not too long before, maybe a few days before.
But yeah, back at this again.
That he was working on something
big.
And whatever, when he did it, he was going to get made sergeant. It was that big. But he wouldn't tell his friend what it was.
Tell your friends what it is.
They speculated he was working on some vice ring, some mob thing too.
Some inside job. Yeah. Some connection between the local PD and the mob.
And so, and I guess they said they had saw him at Ralph had stopped by an ex-convict's house called Frank Calvise, but they don't know what for. These are all just really broad speculation stuff, but they're throwing everything out there. This is all they got. The investigation, it's practically nothing. And 1 week before Ralph's murder, a man did a tour of the house across the street.
That was weird. And
the neighbor picked Calvise out of a lineup.
That
was him doing a tour of the house, and I guess he'd ask the guy, whoever's touring, a realtor or whoever was renting the house, hey, is this house a lot like that house across the street, the layout or whatever? It was weird. That was about all they give us. So, but then when asked again, the neighbor recanted his statement.
Yeah, shocking.
Yeah. So.
Oh, you're telling me that a known mobster toured my house and asked me questions? Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about.
Anyways, that's where Unsolved Mysteries leaves us.
Yeah.
Literally, it's, hey, man, this guy was shot.
It's looking like the mob, but we have nothing.
But we got nothing. Their investigation is nothing.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
You ready for your update?
Yep.
Still unsolved.
I'm not surprised.
Never solved. There's been a lot of...
poor police officer, his partner. This tore his partner
So
up.
they do say his partner said at the funeral, he promised himself he would find this killer.
Yeah.
And for 20-something...
He worked on it, off duty, on duty, everything.
For over 20 years, he has been working on this case unofficially.
Yep.
And he really does want to find who did this. But there is nothing. So there's been a few, speculations. That Calvise guy died in 1974, so we'll never know.
Yeah.
Not quite sure. I tried to find what he was tied to.
Mob or something? Or, what he was known for?
Yeah, and just kind of maybe mob things. They say that what was that other mobster? I said...
The hospital dude?
Yeah, Sam DiStefano.
Yeah.
Was cleared. I'm not buying that.
Yep.
So they do say there was a connection made somewhere in the 90s to Silas Jane. He was also tied to the mob. He ran a horse arena and he defrauded people, but he was known to be a pretty brutal guy. That he had tortured some people. He was actually tied to the killing of his stepbrother or his brother-in-law. But he also had ties to Sam DiStefano. Him and them were kind of partners and had worked together. He ran this horse boarding and horse racing outside of Chicago with that. They never actually say why he's tied to the murder of him, of this police officer, but they said that some of those connections... There was connections being made between this guy and that.
I am sure whatever illegal activities were taking place in this horse arena were being looked the other direction. And who knows, maybe after he disrespected this guy at the hospital, and then it came up that this guy might have been looking into this horse thing. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't get any solid evidence. We don't any decent leads or theories. But the mob was...
Running Chicago at that time?
Quite large in the 60s in Chicago. So, and we all know there's ties to the mob, to police and and politicians, all kinds of things. And if he was working on something kind of on the side, ruffled some feathers, people found out. It clearly wasn't the wife. I think that was pretty much ruled out. But at least they didn't give us any other theories of why he would be shot in the back of the head.
Well, that seems very mobster, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. You have any thoughts or theory? I mean,
my theory is it is clear
the mob was involved.
That I think strong.
This was some sort of hired hit of some. This was an organized
possibility
crime.
That mob. And I'll be honest, I do find it really weird that the mob would kill someone over handcuffing a guy to a bed in the thing. Usually, I do personally, and I'm just going off a wild guessing. I just think it was something else.
Like I said before, I wonder if the investigation he was looking into had potential to connect police officers to this horse place, and if this horse place was also connected to the hospital guy. And it was like, yeah, not only is this, and then he's like, yeah, he disrespected me. Like, that's 2 strikes again. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just really weird for one little thing to set off. But, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, that's not out of the realm of a possibility for the mob. I don't know.
Yeah. Interesting.
But anyways, that's your story. No resolution. And there probably never will be.
There never will be. It's organized crime. It's,
anyone that was probably involved is all probably dead
by
now. So you'll never find out.
Never find out. All right. Okay, guys. Well, that is our episode. So if you guys like what you hear, please, 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 the best thing you guys can do to support us is to leave a rating and a written review, and anywhere that you get your streaming services at. Share us with a friend, follow us on social, share our stories. We are a small independent podcast. We don't have a Patreon or anything crazy like that. So the only way that we can get support from you guys is through you guys sharing our podcast through social medias and through word of mouth.
What's a Patreon?
Patreon is like a paid subscription service. You don't have any Patreon podcasts?
I didn't even know it was a thing. It's the first time hearing about it.
I have a couple. Yeah, I have a couple of podcasts I subscribe to, like their free not free, I guess, their content on Patreon. Bonus episodes, different things like that. And there's several podcasts that have Patreons that are just like donation only, or like what they call like a coffee pot fund, where it's like you can donate like $1 a month to just like help keep the lights on through these small. I've read through several things. We don't have that, any intentions on ever. I was even listening to one podcast before where they shared like their PayPal and Venmo account at the end of every one that was like, hey, if you've got an extra 50 cents to kick our way. And I was like, no, at some point I'd like for us to have a Patreon with bonus content. Maybe we will recap America's Most Wanted or some other like 90s Rescue 911 or whatever else. Maybe we'll recap Full House or what was Boy Meets World. Well, maybe we'll do a fun one. What was your favorite? Maybe we'll recap Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Now we're talking. All right. I can get behind that show.
Bonus content that's like adjacent to what you do, where you can actually get paid to give people extra stuff. So we don't have any of that. So the only way we can rely on you guys, we don't get paid for this.
Well, I know we don't get paid for it, but other people get paid for this?
No one's getting paid for this right now. And is to share our content, view our stories, do all of those things. It goes a long way. Get on our Facebook discussion group, add your friends, get uncomfortable about it. Make us uncomfortable with the amount of reviews that you leave for us. And we're here for it.
Unless it's a bad review.
Yeah, only 5-star reviews are welcome. If you have a bad review, you can email that to me at unsolvedcouplepodcast@gmail.com.
I don't need to hear about my faults. I already know all about them, okay?
We already have to listen to this when we edit it and stuff like that. We know what we're bad at. Okay, are you ready for our question? For anyone who's potentially new to us, we always end our episode with, since we are the Unsolved Couple, the first 98% of this is Unsolved Mysteries. And the last 2%, look at that math I just did off the top of my head, you are welcome,
98
is couples. Where Ben and I ask each other stupid questions. That's the other thing. If you guys ever have any question ideas, it's getting kind of hard to try to always find silly questions. Feel free to leave them in any 5-star rating or review, and we'll read them to each other. And Ben will have to answer, honestly, any question that you give him if you leave a 5-star review.
Most of these are made up. I make up my answers.
You do not. I'd call you out on it if you did. Okay. Are you ready for your question, Ben?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What is one thing you absolutely cannot do? Like maybe, preferably something you have tried, something you want to do, and just found that you are terrible at it.
Like,
could be anything.
I'll let you answer first.
Oh my gosh. I sent this to you like...
I know, but I don't have anything.
Okay.
I mean, I do, I'm sure, but here's the thing. I'm slow. Okay. My brain works very slowly. Okay. So sometimes I have to hear other people and it jogs memories.
Okay. So mine is longboarding.
Longboarding.
Yes.
Okay. But I think you've tried it. You did.
But that's the thing. I've tried it. I got a longboard and I got a helmet and I did some research. I didn't pay for I don't know if you can take longboarding classes, but I did some review. I watched some YouTube tutorials. We went over to the church building down the street here. That's a big open parking lot that's nicely paved. And I cannot balance. And here's the thing. I actually have very good balance. I can do yoga. I can dance. I can do a lot of stuff. I can rollerblade. But when it comes, I can ski. But when it comes to longboarding,
it's the fear.
In 100%, it's fear. And full disclosure, the biggest thing is, so a couple years ago, I got diagnosed after a car accident with a Chiari malformation, and part of my skull is gone. Okay? And if I was to fall backwards off a longboard...
You're afraid of hitting your head.
And hit my head, even with a helmet on, it would... I don't know what it would do, but it wouldn't be good.
It wouldn't feel good.
It wouldn't feel good. Also, I turned 40 in a few days. By the time this comes out, I'm already 40. The fear of breaking a leg or an arm bone at this age, it just doesn't heal. I think all of those things are in my head. But every time I see a girl longboarding, she looks so cool. And I want to be able to do it. And I've tried it.
You want to do it.
I want to do it. But I am terrified and I'm terrible at it. I don't know how to make it work. So, there you go. That's mine.
Okay. I mean, I'm terrible at a lot of things.
No, you're not.
Can't golf to save
But
my
have you
life.
ever put time and effort into it?
Yeah, so when I was a teenager, me and my friends golfed quite a bit.
Oh, did you? See,
Yeah.
I didn't know this.
Yeah. Yeah, we actually went golfing there because there was quite a few golf places around the Portland area.
Yeah.
And it was sometimes $10 to
Yeah.
go. And we went. And I am horrendous at it.
I think golf is boring.
I would love to get good at it.
And I think people only want to play it because they think all of the other cool rich guys are doing it.
But I have something, and it's not a sport.
Well, it doesn't have to be a sport. That was just the first thing that came to mind when I saw that question.
So this is the thing. I have tried this so many times, and I cannot figure it out and I cannot eat with chopsticks.
Oh.
It cannot be done.
That is
It has been showed to me.
That you don't know how to do that.
It has been showed to me so many times, and I have tried it so many times. But for the
I love
life
eating with
of
chopsticks.
me,
Yeah.
I cannot. It is just, it blows my mind. I don't understand how people do it. And I watch people and they're having a conversation.
They don't even have to think about it.
It is just they're just moving along with their life with these chopsticks.
And you play the drums too.
Yes, I understand that. But with drums, you hold a stick in each hand.
Yes, I'm just saying you're pretty good at moving, doing two different beats at the same time. It's totally different.
It is a totally different thing. And for the life of me, I cannot do it. It cannot be done. And I think even if I tried, because I have tried.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. It shouldn't be this difficult to do that.
Yeah.
So to me, it is just such a waste of time to try to master this
forget every time
thing.
we go to any sort of Asian style restaurant. We don't eat sushi.
I just ask him instantly.
Ben is like, "Can I get a fork,
just
please?"
Give me a fork. Just give me a fork.
And I swear Chinese food and Asian food tastes better when eaten with chopsticks, which 100% is a mental thing.
And maybe it does, but that's the other thing is I just don't care now. I'm to the point, the forks exist. I'm here for it. If there was a restaurant and I loved it, and they only use chopsticks, I would either, I wouldn't go there, or I'd just bring my own fork.
You'd bring your own fork.
Yeah, 100%.
There you go. All right, guys. Well, we hope you enjoyed this week's episode of The Unsolved Couple. Make sure to be back here next week where Ben and I recap another episode of
Unsolved Mysteries.
Bye.